Yeah.
I have a question about the sludge that they put on fields. I guess I have reservations about that, but I don't know that much about it.
Yeah, so you're talking about municipal sewage sludge, or biosolids is the polite word they use for it. Yeah, well, you know, ecologically, human manure, if it were just that, would be a good fertilizer. But when it's coming through a municipal solid waste treatment, you don't know what goes down people's drains, and definitely heavy metals accumulate. That's a big concern with those, and that's primarily why that's not allowed for organic, is concerns about heavy metals. But yeah, I would be concerned about that too, because they will accumulate, they don't break down over time.
Another concern I have is with the increase in ethanol plants, they're going to be planting corn on corn and putting more nitrates on the fields, which goes into the streams.
Yeah.
What can anybody do about that?
Well, once again, I share that concern, and it's not that they're going to be, but they already are. I mean, a huge spike in corn acreage, and it's just going to continue like that. Yeah, well, luckily now I think there's getting more research coming out to question the wisdom of this mad rush to ethanol. You know, all things, you know, in moderation maybe, but, you know, it's just been, you know, like tunnel vision, investing in all the tax breaks, and it's driven up all the, you know, the corn prices, but also, you know, there are real concerns that it will lead to starvation. You know, that this is a lot of food to dramatically take out of the food stream and turn into fuel for inefficient, wasteful cars. You know, we haven't addressed our driving or fuel efficiency and conservation. We should be starting at that end first and get our usage down, and, you know, and find as many solar-based ways. And you know, I think there is a place for biofuels, but not corn to be. And it uses tremendous amounts of groundwater, you know, the farming practices certainly are a concern, and the whole dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico related to our practices upstream here, and that's just going to be exacerbated with these rush to ethanol.
But I think people just aren't educated to that. I mean, they're not aware of it, of what's happening.
Yeah, well, there's more stories now. I'm hearing more people questioning the wisdom of this, and there's both science and more popular talk, and, you know, the livestock industry is not happy because the feed prices have gone way up. I mean, it's had a lot of ramifications just in a very short amount of time. And yeah, now there's, you know, some major new studies looking at real big picture impacts that's questioning it, besides some of the details that I mentioned. Yeah.
One thing would be like farm policy, like the Center for Rural Affairs. They give you a lot of information on farm policy, like cutting farm payments to $250,000 per farmer, and stop giving all this money away to these big farmers. And you need to contact your legislator about that. That could really help, I think.
Yeah, and you know, the Farm Bill is in conference committee now, and here's something I support our president on, because he's pushing for a $250,000 cap on those payments. But right now, it's like $1 million or so.
And then they can set up like LLCs and set up a...
Oh, sure.
So they can get...
There's always games, yeah.
Like a $350,000 limit, but there's these loopholes, and this bill was... Yeah. They tried to get this bill to cut the loopholes and put a $250,000 cap, but it didn't get passed.
Right.
So you can look and see what senators voted against, and it's called the Grassley-Dorgan.
Right. Right. Yeah, but yeah, this Farm Bill has some good things in it. There's some good language for the first time to really support organic agriculture. There's some good, you know, farm to school lunch. The House bill has some good beginning farmer language in it, but at the same time it's schizophrenic because it keeps the whole subsidy system in place without putting any kind of meaningful caps on those. Yeah.
I want to ask, Jim, how are you feeling that the standard is holding up? I mean, there's a fair amount of press about attacks and loopholes about the organic standard itself. Like it's pretty
well, yeah.
strong against those.
Well, so far the standards haven't been weakened, and there was some misconceptions about, there were a whole bunch of things that were added to the national list last year, but that actually was a dramatic tightening because there used to be a lot more allowed in a certain category, and now it got narrowed down to 37 or so. So there was a lot of press about that, which was a little misdirected, but so the standards haven't been weakened, but the enforcement, I said there's never been a $10,000 fine. The USDA just announced last week that they've reorganized the National Organic Program, so there's kind of 3 divisions. There's the standards division, the accreditation, and then compliance. They named 2 people that were already there to head up standards and accreditation, and nobody for compliance. That tells me what a priority it is, you know. But the thing that I've seen, and this is hopefully might change, you know, with a new USDA, a new administration, but it is Washington as usual. The lobbyists who have access and are there every day have the ear and are influencing how the regulation is being enforced or not. And the kind of classic example right now is a big confinement dairy operation out in Colorado. Like 10,000 head. They're being fed organic feed, but they're not pasturing those animals, even during the growing season. Aurora Dairy is their name. And there was complaints filed, well documented, investigation. USDA did the first step right. They had a notice of proposed revocation with 14 different willful violations. It was all well and good, what they should do. But then they exerted influence at USDA, got a consent agreement, which is like a plea agreement, but they remained certified, didn't have to pay any fines, and have to make a few changes, but they still aren't going to pass. You know, they're in total flaunting of the regulation, but they had the power, the influence to be able to get off the hook, essentially. So I'm a lot more concerned about enforcement right now than I am the content of the standards. And hopefully we'll see that change, you know, in the next couple years. Yeah.
I just do a farmer's market garden.
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of I've done no chemical for many years, but I'm interested in this, the idea of what would it look like for somebody like me to do this, where you, I don't know, the clover or whatever you wrote. How does that work?
Well, I don't know how big about an acre. Yeah. Well, you know, typically you'd take about a fifth of that's in clover, or you know, you might plant in the fall winter rye and then frost seed clover, and you break it up so that part of it's going to be in a soil building crop each year. So you might want to expand to be able to still have an acre of production, you know, if you've got a little more land to use for that. But you know, you got to see that as not a lost year, but that's your most valuable year in the rotation, because that is really building the soil that is going to pay you back when you grow the sweet corn there, or the potatoes, and it pays back for several years, those changes that you make to the soil by working in those cover crops. So you just, you know, there's good books about it. The New Organic Grower by Elliot Coleman is an excellent one for market. Is there a copy back there? Yeah, that's what I always used. Yeah, there it is with the kind of tan border around it. That's the best for a market gardener and help you set up a plan.